So today we're here with the folks from Dryland Distilleries, which is a new distillery that's opening up here in Longmont. Starting, when is it going to happen? When are you guys actually planning on opening?
So, we're planning on being able to sell and be open by spring break time for college. So it'll be March, April time frame.
Okay, great. So tell me a little bit about who each of you guys are.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Well, my name's Aaron Main. I'm a Colorado native from Grand Junction and moved over here in 2002 to Longmont. After meeting my wife, decided to settle down, and this is where we call home.
Okay. And you are a master distiller?
I am the master distiller for Dryland Distillery.
Okay.
It's the title that we have chosen for me. I have a
With good reason, by the way.
a pretty strong background with fermentation and things like that. So, with brewing beer, and I worked for a long time as a process development engineer for biotech that used yeast strains as a full injectable like cancer kind of thing, and for chemotherapy. So using that background to bring the fermentation side to the distillery, using my mechanical knowledge to help run the stills and produce things.
Excellent. All right. So, Nels, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Nels Wroe, and the second half of Dryland Distillers. My background is not distilling.
Okay.
I have done some homebrew, but that's kind of why I wrapped Aaron into this lovely project here. However, I do know a lot about the industry. I did a project for about a year with a national industry publication, and had the opportunity to basically travel the West and interview craft distillers.
Right.
And so we learned a lot about the process, and it definitely piqued an interest. And my background has been in leadership consulting, HR consulting, and I've also had a coffee shop in my past life.
Oh.
So there's a time when I thought it's time to create something new. So it's a creation process for me that really sparked the interest with a lot of the background that we have. And frankly, I'm from the West as well. I mean, our family grew up in the West, in Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, and felt like it was a chance to really exhibit and create something new that was genuinely and uniquely focused on the West where we live.
Right. Excellent. All right. So why dryland? What does dryland mean?
Well, if you think about where we live, the arid climate that we live in, again, me from Grand Junction, you're talking the high desert plains, and here the same thing. It's an environment that doesn't receive a whole lot of water. And so we're trying to focus on botanicals and things that don't require a lot of water to thrive. There's also the dry land connotation of Prohibition era kind of a thing.
Okay.
It's a double entendre that we don't really bring out too often, but it's primarily focused on the plants that we use to make the spirits.
Yeah, well, the other very important factor is Colorado gets a lot of attention for the mountains.
Right.
It doesn't get a lot of attention for some of the most gorgeous places in this state. And if you look about the American West, a lot of the American West is extraordinarily dry. And some of the most spectacular places I've been to are dry land. And it was time for us to, I think, expand our definition, expand people's understanding of what it's like to live in the West. And the dry land is a key focus of that.
And if you think like all the Gene Autry westerns, Roy Rogers, they weren't cruising through Leadville and Silverton. They're in Joshua Tree, and then the Canyonlands of the West.
Yeah,
that's where you think of a cowboy in the Western world.
Right. Excellent. Cool. So tell me about some of the specific types of distilled spirits that you're going to be focusing on.
well, so dryland is a theme.
Yep.
Part of my original concept when I talked with Aaron about it, I credit a good friend of mine, Carlos, who's from Sonora in Mexico. He and I joked for a long time that I wanted to learn how to make bacanora, which is an agave-based spirit based in the state where he comes from. And he looked at me, he's like, bacanora? What do you want to make bacanora for, right? Because it's basically just a small spirit, kind of a localized spirit that when you're from there, I don't think you give it the appreciation it deserves. But that's, joking aside, we explored, can we do an agave-based spirit? And it became pretty tricky to source agave locally or domestically. Now there is a variety of agave, high altitude agave that grows in southern Colorado, but it's just not commercially viable right now. So we turned our attention to, well, what else might be similar, and prickly pear is all over this country. So I talked with a retired professor at CSU who had done a research crop of prickly pear, and he's like, it's totally doable in Colorado. He's like, it's one of the most underutilized crops that if we could figure out how to commercialize it, you've got something there. So I used a lot of his research, a lot of his contacts to really figure out how we could convert prickly pear, not just the fruit, which is a lot of people use just the fruit, but we're using the entire plant. Learning the process of bacanora, which is very similar to mezcal. We take the entire prickly pear cactus and we smoke it over a wood fire for a long time, basically to bring out all the caramelization and whatever sugars are in the cactus, and then we distill that down into the smoky spirit that we have. And as far as we know, nobody has done this with the prickly pear in the way we're doing it. So that's kind of one of my labors of love, which is truly painful because prickly pear is not easy. And then the other spirit, which I'm going to let Aaron talk a bit about, we're starting off with, is an heirloom dryland wheat, which is fabulous.
Right, and so that's we're using 100% wheat. It's an heirloom wheat, dryland, hand sown, non-irrigated wheat. Again, going with our theme of dry. Mm-hmm. So there's no corn mash, no sour mash, no sugar added to the fermentation. It's only the wheat, and it gives you an entirely different feel of what you think from a whiskey. You think of that really harsh alcohol burn, and ours is going to be, it's really soft, floral. Obviously, you get some alcohol burn because there's alcohol in it.
Right.
But the complexity and the beauty of it is it's in there, and it's really subtle compared to the vanillas and caramels that you'll get with a modern bourbon.
Excellent.
Yeah. So those are the two that we're starting with. We have one, close on its heels probably for the spring, which will be our gins. We are looking at using exclusively Colorado botanicals for our gins. Our goal is to have a lowland or prairie-style gin that looks at botanicals that are probably from roughly 7,000 feet and below. The altitude cut might change depending upon what we can. And then we'll have either a mountain gin, which is based off of botanicals that are 7,000 feet and above. And a lot harder than we thought. Because, the dryland theme, there are not many botanicals in Colorado, they're native to Colorado, that are suitable for use.
Right.
So we've been partnering in friends and neighbors. A friend of ours is a botanist and an herbalist to help kind of guide us towards the right plants. And then we're realizing that several of them are considered just weeds.
They're weeds, and so
don't grow anywhere commercially.
So to find them commercially is literally impossible. And so I luckily have an irrigation ditch that runs through my yard, and so there are things there that we can gather. But it is making the gin a lot more difficult than we anticipated.
But it's beautiful so far.
Really good.
We have our first round. It's our test batches, and it's completely unique in terms of the botanical profile for the gin. So we're pretty pleased about it so far. Yeah.
So you're setting up in a new building, not a new building, a very old building actually, in downtown Longmont, called. I can't think of what he's calling it.
The Experience.
The Experience, right?
The Experience
it's a
building.
co-working space upstairs.
Yes.
My understanding is that they're going to be putting in the La Vita Bella coffee shop with some sort of restaurant type of thing in the front, kind of a tapas sort of thing, and then you guys are going to be the
back third. We're the anchor.
You're the anchor. You're the anchor. Okay. So tell me a little bit about this thing that you're building out and what it's going to look like.
Right. So the plan, like you said, the plan is for the main floor to house the coffee shop and hopefully a tapas style restaurant. A finger food, if nothing else. And then the top space is a co-work area. So the back 1/3 of it will be the distillery and tasting room. Mm-hmm. So that's where we do all our mashing, fermentation, distillation, and be able to sell our spirits for consumption and cocktails.
Right, and it's a huge building. I mean, it's surprisingly large. It's one of the biggest historic buildings in downtown, and so there's surprising amounts of space just on the first floor alone. And so with the coffee shop, restaurant in front, and then there's going to be a live events venue, music, arts in the middle. That's the part that we will be connected to. Our tasting room will be connected into that live events center. So it's a unique use of the space, and I think it's a great use of the space for a community destination. The fact that it's right in the 400 block of downtown Longmont is a big plus. And the city's been great. I mean, had we tried this a year ago, it wouldn't have been possible because they didn't allow the zoning for a production facility to be downtown. Yeah, okay. So we hit it just right where they had changed the zoning in the latest zoning plan that allows us to have a small production facility with a tasting room. So it's a watershed for Longmont, and I think the investments that Longmont is making into creating a destination of craft foods, craft spirits, craft beers, it's starting to pay off, actually. And that's one of the key reasons why we felt like downtown is the place to be.
Right. Excellent. So you guys are doing an Indiegogo campaign right now.
We are.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So the Indiegogo campaign, we really wanted to bring people into what we're doing. And working with a distillery and with the tax laws that go back to the Prohibition era, doing a shareholder launch is pretty tricky. And so we thought, well, let's try something that is genuinely honest to what we're doing, which is trying to pull the community, friends, family into our whole project. And that's when we decided to launch the Indiegogo campaign. And it's our first step into crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. That's gone really well. I mean, the first week we surpassed our initial 30% goal, and it's still cranking along right now. The campaign runs through December.
Right.
We have an early target date of, I think, around December 15th with the option to extend into the first part of January. And the feedback we've gotten has been fabulous. The Indiegogo crew has been great to work with. With having a funding campaign on a distillery is tricky. Because alcohol shipping is very tricky. So they've been one of the few platforms that really had the flexibility to work around a distillery startup like this.
So what is the campaign itself? What are you asking for? What can people get for that? So
I can't give you prices off the top of my head. That's not something that I can do. But obviously donations are always accepted, but we are selling merchandise. We'll be selling coasters, t-shirts, discounted bottles, vouchers for cocktails at the tasting room, and for the really adventurous, or as Nels says, the really large family, we're offering half barrels or a full barrel. So again, that's the 165ths of whiskey.
Yeah.
So that's a very large adventurous family.
Big family.
Yeah, but this is probably one of the few places you can actually get our genuine limited edition first barrels.
Right.
And they have gone really well. I mean, I think we're all over 60% sold out. So if there's only one first barrel of each of our spirits, that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
So they're all going through the fundraising campaign. So if you want a signed barrel, that's where or a signed bottle, that's how we do it.
So what's the campaign called then on Indiegogo?
It's Dryland Distillers.
So it's indiegogo.com and search on Dryland Distillers.
That's correct. Oh, you could always
3 different words: dry space land space distillers.
That's correct. Yeah, and we have a Facebook page which links right to it. So
all right.
You can always visit us there, and I think that's the same thing. Facebook.com/Dryland Distillers.
Right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So is there anything else that you want to have people here in Longmont know?
Yeah, that's a really good loading question.
Did I miss anything? And of course, we can cut anything out of this if we want. So.
No, I think probably the one thing that I would like people to know is how significant the community involvement has been, the community support in getting this off the ground. It's been impressive, and it's been a significant joy to have the level of support and involvement and enthusiasm we've seen from everybody, and that's a great sign. I love this town for that.
I did have a friend of mine, by the way, Thor, told me that he was sorry that I had made so many mistakes in the first 40 years of my life, because this is the best decision I've ever had. So.
All right. Thank you so much for taking your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Scott Converse. This is the Longmont Observer. We're talking to the Dryland Distillery folks. Check them out on Indiegogo.com and search on Dry Space Land Space Distilleries. Thanks for listening. Got it.